Assalamu alaikum. Peace and blessings be upon you. On the name of God, the most gracious and the most merciful. Today on our podcast on Healing is Believing, we're discussing about ancestral energy. And this is in conjunction of last week's episode, a continuation of Ancestral Energy Part 2. On our podcast today, we have Imam Saab as well as Dr. Vibert Muhammed, our ambassador for the Divine Clinic Foundation. Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Muhammed. How are you today?
My sister. Alhamdulillah, it was a wonderful day. It's hot. You know, I'm Florida. I don't know how it is on the other side of the Atlantic, but it's hot here today. So,
Alhamdulillah, things are very, very nice here, just as well. But it's beautiful to have everyone together again. I believe, that we can talk about this beautiful, this beautiful thing of healing is believing. It's something that's very, very important.
And yes, it truly is, because when we talk about our subject matter today on ancestral energy, there is such great wealth of information and wealth of knowledge that I myself am a student of learning and taking all the insight from the teachings of the Kutub and Imam Saab from the cases that they experience, and the wisdom too that Dr. V has also. This is a really wonderful platform that our audience can benefit and come forth with. They are experiencing any type of trauma, distress. So I'm just going to open the floor and have perhaps Dr. V, if you would like to start off and give us some insight on ancestral energy.
Well, ancestral energy is a real thing. It's a serious thing, and oftentimes it's something that we overlook in reference to healing ourselves. We go through a period whereby it seems as if nothing is going right for us. Nothing seems to click in the right manner. And it's because we have a negative concept, a negative lifestyle, a negative belief system. Now, in the Americas, I'm talking about the Caribbean, Latin America, Central and South America, they have the same type of beliefs too, but they call it generational curses. Now, you may say, a generational curse, what is that? Keep in mind that in the Americas, we have a conglomeration of different belief systems from the East, from Europe, from Africa. And they all come together oftentimes in the spiritual basis that we call candomblé or obia or Shango or voodoo or hoodoo or all of these things. But most importantly, whatever the belief system it is, they're all trying to find some way of healing. And when they can't get healed, they say that it's a generational curse. Now, what is a generational curse? It's the case oftentimes where 2, 3, 4 generations of a family, they think the same way, they eat the same way, they live the same way, so therefore nothing gets healed. For example, you have a person who says that they have diabetes, right? And they come back and say to you, well, I have it because my mother had it, and her mother had it. But there's nothing predisposed in your system and your DNA that says you have to have it. However, if you eat the same way, you eat the same terrible foods, the same fatty foods, the same salt foods, guess what? The second generation is going to have diabetes, the third, and the fourth, because you haven't changed your way. You have not changed your structure. So with the Divine Clinic, it's about a total life change, a whole thinking change. It's a whole cleansing, whereby once you get in tune with what we are, what we're doing, and what we believe, and what we're trying to transmit to different communities and different nations and to the entire world family, when you get in tune with that, it's what you may say in Christianity, a baptism, a new life, a new way of thinking, a new person, you see, and we call it a cleansing. And, it's so interesting. Rahida, the other day I was talking to you, right? And I said, this is like a family. You know, and the family is not just a blood family or a thinking family, but the family is an element where everyone is cleansed, you see? Everyone is into a new world. We're not walking, we're floating. We're not thinking, we are creating. It's a beautiful element. So if you want to get rid of this generational curse, and if you want to find a new way of thinking, a new way of moving, then you have to contact and get in tune with the Divine Clinic and understanding the healing powers that is rooted not just in the religious concept, but in the very nature of mankind and the very nature of humanity. Am I making sense to you?
So eloquently put there. I think that the way you've described that goes through all ages, all walks of life, and it's not just religious based, and really a new way of life here. And
yes.
One of the
and I'm glad you said it's not a religious base, because when we talk about religion, we get caught up, we become entrapped. All right, we get entrapped with a certain type of dogma that is hard to get out. We put ourselves in a prison. However, when we look at the teachings of the various schools of thought, when we look at it in a spiritual way, as the Divine Clinic, as divine healing, then we free ourselves. You know, one of the people that I used to like a lot when I was a young guy, I used to be a fighter, a boxer. I did Muay Thai and karate and stuff. But it was like they had this guy named Bruce Lee. You ever heard of him?
Bruce Lee?
No, you ever heard of Bruce Lee?
No, Bruce Lee, yes. Bruce Lee, yes.
Yeah, Bruce Lee was a terrific fighter, a great actor. And I read his book years ago called The Tale of Fighting, I believe. And he said that we have to be like water that goes into a vessel. And what it means is that we're not fixed by any shape, but we take on the concept and the structure of whatever we're in. But we are free. We're not. One minute we're floating, we're springing, we're pouring. And so the element of our spirituality is free flowing. We're not bound by nothing. We're only led by a concept, a beautiful concept of humanity, freedom, justice, and cleansing. I'm sorry to have cut you off. I get so excited by this. So it keeps me going. Are we still here?
Yes, it's just there's so much information and a depth of knowledge with coming from your background on a historical perspective, coming and expressing it from the Caribbean, Latino, and the African. And Imam Saab, you have handled quite a bit of cases and in dealing with curses, as Dr. V was also mentioning. How would you like to add up on?
Well, firstly, Dr. V, you're very beautifully put there in terms of what you've introduced with, because curses have many names, right? They have many badges, but fundamentally, when we're looking at them, they all have the same characteristic, which is to inhibit an individual or a community of individuals, i.e. a family. And I can give you a case study. I can give you a case study as well, in which there were twin brothers who came to us, and their testimonial video is on our website as well. And what happened to them was that they were essentially at a spiritual lockdown, in which there are people who are suffering, there are people who are not doing well, in terms of things of blockages and all these types of things. And what we have to understand is that when they're like this, that there's usually a deeper understanding why. Now, what happened with these two gentlemen, and this is the thing, I'm going to tell you the story, and it's going to sound so surreal, so I need you to sort of stay with me here. I need you to sort of bear with me and try and sort of get your head around it, because it's going to be, I think you're going to be in for a bit of a head turner, really. So what happened with these two gentlemen? Their whole life, their parents were effectively taken over by something else. So their childhood, as they remember it, was one that was full of bitterness, it was full of trauma, it was full of neglect. And when you look at the situation, their parents themselves were suffering as well. And what was happening also was that there was a generational curse happening that stemmed several generations before. Now, typically we're looking at 3-4 generations on an average person, but with theirs was even longer than that. It went for even before, the continents in how we know them, that they weren't even continents, in that sort of way. This is how far things can go back and escalate, and the way that they were reviving that curse was that the people within their dreams were being affected. The very family members of the community were being affected, and they were being afflicted while offering sacrifice. Dr. V, maybe this wouldn't sound so unusual to you, but in terms of what they were doing and what they were being forced to do, was that they were being asked to essentially, so just bear with me one moment, Dr. V, inshallah.
Okay.
So, Dr. V, I mean, what we understand at this point really is that, in terms of with these gentlemen, their family had to offer a sacrifice, and it was a human sacrifice that had to be offered. Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
And this was essentially coming into their dreams, right? So they were being shown a vision in their dreams, right? And what was happening was that they were being told to sacrifice a member of their family so that they may be free from the curse. So when you're given a vision, now understand, as a spiritual seeker in this world right now, you're depending a lot on the visions that you have, yeah? Because they're supposed to be there for your guidance. They're supposed to be there for, the spiritual landscape is talking to you, is communicating with you. That's what you understand. Yes, only when you have the hand of a spiritual teacher, though. This is the reality, not when you're by yourself. You see, in this situation, because of the ancestral, curse and energy on these people, what was happening was that they were having visions to essentially send a female member of their family onto a boat, and this was again in another country, yeah, where there's a lack of light, a lack of resources like we have in sort of Western world. They didn't have access to that then. So from the story that they remember, and from what we also were told as well, is that the family then released a female member. They dressed her how they wanted her to be dressed, which was again in sort of fashionable lipstick, all dressed up almost like a bride. And they had to put her on a boat, yeah, and release the boat in the darkness in the middle of the night. And by doing that, the curse will be lifted. Yeah. Now, their families were fully aware of the curse and fully aware of its ramifications. And the way that it was sustaining itself was that every single generation there has to be a sacrifice.
That's awful.
It is. It's real. It's
very,
real.
very interesting.
It's real.
Yeah.
And then what happened was that they sent her. Yeah, they sent her on that boat. But you know what happened? They had a change of heart. As she was sailing away, they decided to grab the boat, because it was one of these paddle boats. Yeah.
Okay.
So it was just the current was taking her. It appeared the current was taking her, but obviously we understand from the spiritual sense of the word, it was obviously the forces of the unseen, from the dark forces that were taking her away. Yeah, it wasn't the boat was rowing itself. There is no tide at night, in that sense. Be able to take a boat into a desired location. The tide moves in accordance to, the moon and all the other forces.
But you know what it tells me? It tells me that people are hurting. People are looking for answers. And while that may be backward to us, and it is, all right, and dangerous, but it also shows that people are striving to find some type of peace, some type of cleansing within their souls, within their families, within their communities, within their nations. And so where people are desperate, they're doing all types of things. So, for example, you're going to have a generational curse whereby people in a family are just drinking. They're just taking drugs. The mother did it, the father did it, the sister did it, the children are doing it because they think that's the only way they can find happiness. That's the only way they can find cleansing. They haven't understood and they have not been attuned or abreast to how we think, which is a holistic cleansing, which is something that is pure, simple, but good. All right, that is the very foundation of not just life, but the very foundation of the universe. So when they don't know these things, they do all types of things. For example, in the United States, great country I live in, but look at it. People are not cleansed. They're not happy. Why? Well, one person, to get happy, they have to get the biggest car that they can find. Then they have to get 2, 3, 4 cars. Nobody can drive 2 cars at the same time. Then they have to get the biggest house. Not a house that's simple and neat and clean, but something that is bodacious, arrogantly large. Why? To show off. To thinking that that's making them happy. When that doesn't make them happy, they have to go to a restaurant and eat the biggest and the most expensive meal. It shows when people are not happy, when people are not cleansed. It illustrates that we have a decadent society. Thus, if we have a decadent society, it means that people need a man, need a group, need, as my friends would say, the Avengers. That's what I said, the Avengers. To come in and to clean them and to come with a type of force, a type of energy, a type of a manner, a type of speed that they've never seen before. So when we have all of this other stuff, people, it shows us that we're living in a very dangerous and decadent society that needs what? Holistic cleansing to break what? The generational curse or the ancestral negativity that has embraced and that has polluted and created a toxic atmosphere that most of us today live in.
It's like bang on. You said it really well.
It's 100%. And I think, just to wrap up with regards to that story as well. Because what happened was that, with regards to that family, they changed their mind. And they basically pulled the person back, the young lady. They pulled her back from the boat. But exactly what happened was that she went mad. So it took another direction, because what we understand is negative energy has consciousness. Negative energy is alive. Do not mess about with it. Do not think that you want something or that you are prepared to take it on, when in actual fact it's something that can even, paralyze you, because it can. Many people in the middle of the night, they wake up with paralysis. How do we explain this? Is it something that our body just shuts down, or is it something more untoward happening? Because many of these experiences would tell you, and they would dictate that there's a supernatural element of what's happening. Sorry, Dr. T, is that your phone?
Yeah, that's my phone.
Okay.
I cut it off. I'm sorry.
It's okay. So basically what I'm saying is, here in this situation, is that we have to understand that negative energy is not something to be bargained with. It's not something that, for example, with these twins, they came and they came to our teacher, They came to our teacher, they got cleansed. Praise be to God, the Almighty. He came and he cleansed everything, cleared everything. And what happened was that when these, the actual boys themselves, after they got cleansed, they wanted to know, in terms of how the community would deal with them. Right, so then they set it upon themselves, with little direction from us, but they went to the local masjids, they went to the spiritual centers, and they asked and inquired about their, the condition that they had before, and they said, what would they have done? for example. So they told their story, and many of these people of leadership in the community, who people should be going to for spiritual help, for spiritual guidance, are left speechless at these types of stories, because now then they look at them and say, well, you need to just be reading your Quran, or you need to be praying. But what we're understanding here is that the level of prayer that you're asking for these people are already in, firstly, number one, they're in a spiritually negative affected space, so they're below the level of consciousness even in the normal people, right? The average person who is blocked and going through the stresses and turmoils of life, and everything is affecting them, and they're trying to kind of work their way through the system. These are the average people. Everyone falls into that bracket. But then you have people like these two brothers who essentially were in a very, very negatively, spiritually sort of in a lockdown position, very negative position to be living in. And you're telling them to act in accordance to what you would generalize or speak to the general public about doing, telling them to do. Can you see the kind of misguidance there? Because that is that's a negligent on the part of someone who is meant to be accountable for you. It's like a doctor saying to a cancer patient, you're suffering, but just go home and sleep it off. It doesn't quite work like that, because the cancer will spread. You have to know the mechanics of the disease that you're dealing with. And I think when we're talking about spiritual energy, we're talking about negative energy, even from the forms of the severe forms it comes in, i.e. voodoo, hoodoo, and black magic, all of these things, right? Collectively as a group, they are the major negative forces. Because these are the negative forces in which even the sorcerers or magicians themselves are seeking assistance from. They're not seeking it from God. It's nothing pure about what they're doing, right? When they're doing bloodletting, when they're doing sacrifices in the forest, when they're, there's a lot of things in which they're trying to disturb the balance that God has set down. And I think this is what we're talking about. We are here to awaken people to the true understanding of what is going on, bring them forward and tell them that, God's justice has now finally arrived, because no more will people be taking it down. These people who, should be coming out of the woodworks now, saying, I recognize that I need help. I recognize there are people who are speaking on my behalf. On my behalf, they are speaking. Because that's what we're doing, Dr. V, isn't it? And QW.
Absolutely.
We are speaking for those people who don't have a voice. Those who you can't go to a seminar and learn about this, because people are not talking about this openly. Yeah, 1400 years ago, a man came down, a mad guy, said he's the beloved of God. Yeah, look at him now. 1400 years later, over 6 billion Muslims around the world.
Well, 6 billion population, right? Yeah.
But they're all, but even in essence, the general consensus, because there are many people who are not counted, isn't it, in a lot of the countries. And we understand that he has left his mark. A man who was named Mad has left his mark. How do we explain that? He was up in the mountains for 20 years by himself. How do you explain that? You see? Because what was he connecting to? What did he have access to? What did he know? And
it's connected to a higher power.
A higher power, exactly.
A higher energy.
And when we look at for example, when we're looking at the Ahul Bayt, for example, the Shia community, they are fully aware of the sacrifice made by the Holy Prophet and their family, and the Imams, for example, as well, yeah? They are fully aware. The Shia are aware. Ignorance is not a defense. Yeah? The Shia are aware of all of the sacrifices that we made. What is it that all of the Imams knew? That today's Imams today in the masjids are telling people like these twin brothers, they're saying, oh, you have a curse? Just go and pray.
Yeah.
You just send them back to the devils. That's exactly what's going on.
Yeah.
Because the devil is playing with these people.
That's right. It's the devil's world. One of the things is that we have to understand that just because a person may call themselves an imam or a priest or a pastor or a sheikh, it doesn't mean that they really see. All right, they may know all the visitations. They may know the history. They may know all the nuances that the world would classify them as a man or woman of learning and leadership. But something is missing, and that something is that special eye, the eye of the heart, the eye of the heart that is looked into, that allows you to see things and to experience things at a different level. So when people go to these centers, the mosque or the church, they're looking, they're seeking out people who can't see themselves. And there's a parable in the Bible that says, can a blind man lead a blind man? And of course not. All right, so they go into the wrong places, because many of these people, they don't ask the right questions, and by not asking the right questions, they don't have the right answers. So therefore, they have to go elsewhere. All right, and they're looking elsewhere, and that's where they find us. Today, I was driving to another town called St. Petersburg. It's about 2 hours west of Orlando. 5 o'clock in the morning. All right. There are two ladies that's going through Wahida's spiritual cleansing meditation class. And I can't wait for them to get there, because I told them, Wahida, that they need you. Because these people were toxic. They were arguing and fighting early in the morning. I asked myself, how the heck people wake up in this type of atmosphere of hostility and anger and meanness? So I said to them, when they were listening to me for a minute, I can't wait for you to go to my associate, my friend, my sister, to help you with your issues, because you're going to get a divine cleansing that's going to be like none other than you ever experienced. And I guarantee that once you are touched by this person who is touched by the Ketub, who is touched by the Imam, you will have a different belief system. You will have a new set of wheels, a new pair of shoes, that you'll be able to walk and float and become a new woman and man, or a new woman when you leave that place. So going back to this thing, yes, this generational curse, this toxic atmosphere that we have, is destroying us. And the time is now, because if they don't listen, if people do not listen, and if people do not take heed to what is taking place, guess what? They're going to be destroyed. Even though we have 6 billion Muslims, there's an old story that says many are called, but few are chosen. You ever heard that? Many are called, but few are chosen.
It's a very
all right, so we have 6 billion.
Yeah, it's very beautiful, but it's very real.
All right, but it's just a few that's going to understand, and that's going to change the world. And I'm so happy that I'm talking to my brothers and my sisters. Even though we're separated now by, 15,000 miles? I can't swim that far. All right? I'm a decent swimmer, but I can't swim 15,000 miles across the Atlantic. But even though we're separated by distance, we have a love, a spiritual energy, a familyhood, actually it's stronger than blood. Can you believe that? It's stronger than blood. And we want to tie other people into this wonderful family that is based on love, spirituality, peace, and the evolution of a new society. Oh man, I'm so excited now. I feel like
very beautifully said. And it's in the words of Imam Ali as well. It's in the words of Imam Ali, in alayhi salam, and peace and blessings be upon him, which he said that belief is greater than blood. Belief.
Was it? I think
it was Imam Hussein.
Imam Hussein.
Yeah,
right?
but it came from Imam Ali.
Imam Ali's teachings,
Ali,
yes.
He gave it to Imam Hussein alayhi salam, because he was the biggest martyr in the event of Islam.
Yes.
Imam Hussein left one of the biggest marks there, in terms of what they represented as a sacrifice to humanity. No one today would put a 6-month baby up in the air, to be taken by an arrow to the neck.
Yes.
To be dehydrated for, we talk about fasting for 12 hours. They were fasting for 10 days. They didn't go there equipped with that. Do you see what I'm saying to you? So we have to understand that the sacrifices of those who came before us, these sacrifices must still continue now. And you talked about the fight, and you talked about, if we look at the battles before, if the wars before were not fought, if the wars before were not fought, then we would not have religion today. Think about it. 20 years, the Holy Prophet was meditating. Now, this is a message to all the people out there who are meditating only, right? Prophet Muhammad SAW the peace and blessings be upon him, his holy family, and upon his true companions. What was he doing in the mountains? He was meditating. He was doing all sorts of esoteric practice. Esoteric revelations were coming to him. He was growing. He was perfecting himself. He was already perfect, but because of God's, infinite wisdom, that God himself is perfection on perfection multiplied by infinity. You see? And we can never understand God in all of his glory, So what we understand here is that when he's come down, and then he has to set the benchmark to say, you as a people are already, in accordance to what you're believing in, but you have to now bring your belief closer to the truth, right? Forget the idols. Bring yourself closer to understanding. Bring your hearts together, yeah? And Mecca at the time, if you look at from yourself as well, Dr. V, as a historian, as a scholar yourself, from that perspective, Mecca at the time was in division, wasn't it? There were many tribes within that time.
That's right. Yeah.
Just like we have in the story of the Bible, the tribes of Israel. Now Moses, peace and blessing upon him, blessed in the Bible he says that, and Moses, he blessed upon all of the tribes of Israel. One blessing was for all the tribes. You see that unification? One dua, one prayer for 12 tribes. And look at the link that we're seeing as well. The number 12, symbolism. We talk about symbolism in the aspect of esotericism, in the sense of number 12, the 12 imams, the 12 disciples of Jesus, the 12 tribes of Israel. What's going on here? Is God talking to us or something? What's really happening here? You see what I'm saying? But yet the world is asleep. They don't understand. They've forgotten because they're lost between the lines, and they're too busy debating among themselves upon matters that are, in God's eyes, very petty. Yeah, because nobody cares about those things really. God doesn't care. God cares about, like you said, the chosen ones. Everybody gets called, but not everybody has a chance, to fight the good fight. And I think what we have to understand is that, as you said, the time is now, and that is real. Why? Because if it wasn't for the people of the past, picking up that sword and shield and going to fight for Islam, for Christianity or Judaism, none of these people from these institutions will be able to pray in the comfort of the illusion of comfort that they have, that they will be able to even pray today, for example. To hold the banner of Islam or Christianity or Judaism today. Right? If it was not for the sacrifice of those people didn't say, I'm going to wait for the Bible to kind of be compiled. I'm going to wait for the King James's edition. I'm going to, wait till the Quran is revealed in its entirety. It took 20 years to do that. You see what I mean? 20 years it took for that Quran to be compiled, finished and completed.
True.
You see, as Allah says in the Quran, from this day I have perfected for you your religion and completed my favor upon you. 1400 years ago he's saying this, and today we're seeing, ignorance like we've never seen it before. We are seeing generational curses affecting more families than we count to understand. And yet people are turning away saying, oh no, but I've just got this hereditary problem. It's a disease. But the physical manifests from the spiritual. You were a spirit in the heavens first before you came down to this world. You see? And the concept of understanding how generational energy starts in the womb. That when you're being born, and just as your body relies on the mother, upon what she's eating and putting in her mouth, so she's putting toxicity in her mouth. You can go to any maternity hospital today and you can see the evidence of what I'm talking about. When you go there and you see, and you can ask the maternity hospital, do they have a specialist unit for babies who suffer with withdrawal symptoms? These are children or babies who are born of mothers who are heavy use of heroin or hard drugs. So how is it that a baby who's never injected themselves in their life is able to have withdrawal symptoms? How is that possible? They don't know any dealers. Do they have a mini mobile phone? They're phoning their dealer. You see what I mean? We have to understand that there is a reality to how we are affecting our very children, our generations. Yet no one wants to take the blame. No one wants to look at themselves. No one wants to perfect themselves. The Holy Prophet didn't just say, come down and said, I am the beloved of God, and that's it. They fought in wars. They placed their family at risk so that we today could be living in comfort, or at least an illusion of comfort. We owe it to the Holy Prophet. We owe it to all of the prophets of the past. We owe it to all of them, because they were beholders of righteousness, of virtuousness. all of the law that we talk about today, the biggest obstacle in Islam in people getting knowledge and seeking esoteric practices and looking down the scope and opening and broadening their horizons and trying to look into the heart and all of these things, well, they stopped. Why? Because of this aspect of Sharia law. It dominates your life. And there's so much misguidance around it, when in actual fact all of Sharia law is derived from the Holy Quran itself.
Is that right? Huh.
Yes, of course. Look, when God talks about the Quran, he didn't say, there's an accompanying text as well, in terms of the laws as well. Yeah, this is the law pertaining to marriage. Every single law came from the Quran. And then it was then either formulated, backed up by the Hadith. Now there are 6,000 volumes of Hadith. 20 years, the Holy Prophet and his holy family after that as well were living on the earth. So there's many Hadith that you can get for any given situation, because the Holy Prophet would have encountered one of them in his lifetime. So it's not unusual to find Hadith for different things. But when you're kind of narrowing yourself because culturally you've been conditioned to not look beyond the boundaries. Yet when Moses himself was seeking nearness to God, and he was asked by his people, in accordance to the Quran again, when he was asked by his people, "Oh Moses, are you the most wisest of them all?" Moses said, "You know what?" He spoke truthfully because he was a man of truth. He spoke true. He said, "I don't know." He didn't say, "Yeah, I know." He could have, but he said, "I don't know." And he said, "I'm going to ask God and find out." Right? So he goes to the mountain, and he goes and he dials to God, and he asks God as well, and God speaks to him through the burning bush. And again, this is of significance. Why? Because he also asked God that he wishes to see God. But God declines him and says, "No, just keep it on voice chat for now." Yeah? We're not doing FaceTime at the moment. Yeah? You understand? Yeah. And then he asked him, didn't he? He asked him, he said, "Am I the wisest because you've chosen me to lead, the 12 tribes of Israel and, the chosen people, You've given me, accountability for them. So do I know everything, my Lord?" And the good Lord, the High Lord, he says no. He says there is one who is more wiser than you are. So what did he do? He says, "Take me to him, guide me to him, my Lord. Ana amta alayhim." Seek the path of those who have been favored. Favored with what? With God's favor. Because that is something that you cannot take away from anybody. It's not something that you can buy either. There's no monetary value to favor. Favor is something either you have it or you don't. Right. Yeah? But you can only get it if you're walking the path of truth. Now who does he go to see? Right. He goes to see Al-Khidr alayhi salam. Al-Khidr alayhi salam himself, and again, this is where the discussion then breaks out, and there's fights among the Muslim Ummah themselves, because they say that Al-Khidr was a prophet or whatever. But you know what? Even if he was or he wasn't, when God mentions that he was between the two seas, if he was indeed a prophet, and I ask this to all the Muslims who say that he was, if he was indeed a prophet, and the Quran is the book I will follow, I'm not going to follow what anybody else has a exhibition or conference in what they're giving. I'm going back to what Lord is saying, really, because that's what we have to go back to. Jesus, when he was here, he was bringing everybody back to the Torah. He wasn't coming here to set down the Bible. That came as a result of how he was, and God's favor upon Jesus, that he gave him that. You see, he gave that to Jesus because of Jesus' love for the Lord. Because of how he sacrificed himself and his followers. He didn't get married, he didn't have children. You see what I mean? So when we understand about sacrifice in terms of those, and we give full respect to Moses, peace be upon him, upon Jesus, peace be upon him, and the Holy Prophet, peace be upon them as well. Yeah, we give respect to all of them. And what we're saying is that we have to look from their lessons, in understanding that even as Moses himself, with the prestigious title that he was awarded by God, he didn't know everything. He did not know everything. And he was told this, and this is also written in the Quran. It's immortalized in there. And then when he says, "Where do I find him?" He says, "You'll find him where the two rivers meet, where the two seas meet." Now, if we look elsewhere in the Quran, where God talks about the two seas, he talks about the sweet and the salty. Yeah? Now, the two seas, both of different compositions, they don't mix.
Right.
Because of their composition,
Right.
because of the polarity, because of all the other scientific understanding, but they don't meet, right? That's God's order.
That's
His
right. They
balance.
don't mix. That's right.
Yeah. So if you have someone who's essentially sitting, metaphorically speaking, in between two seas, what people are they leading? Because people need to live on land. Yeah. If people could live on sea, then why did the people, the children of Israel, have to cross over the Red Sea? Why couldn't they just set up camp on the Red Sea? You see what I'm saying to you? It doesn't make sense because we are human
we're not
beings.
fish.
Yeah, exactly. We are made to be sustained on the land. Yet
right.
when Moses is directed to one who is wiser than him, who has received God's favor, he's away from everybody. What we understanding? He's detached. That's what he is. He's detached from everything. He wasn't a prophet. You can't be a prophet if you're detached like that. You see?
Right.
Because as a prophet, you have to lead. You have to be involved.
That's right.
But Al-Khidr was not involved. Then when you look at the ayahs that follow this, the story in which Al-Khidr is essentially just as a passenger. He travels on a boat. He doesn't have his own boat. He travels on a boat. Yeah, he goes into the village and he asks for food and he asks for stay. So therefore implying what? That if he was indeed a prophet or someone of nobility, that people would recognize him, upon his travels, or he would have money to pay his way. But he didn't have that, But he was doing God's work. He was a secret agent for God, essentially, And that is very, it's a very beautiful thing. And we have to understand that even today, there are such sleeper agents of God. Yeah, it's not a far-fetched thing. It's not something that we can see on the TV, and think, these things are just, illusions and make-believe.
Well, this is really beautifully
Go ahead.
yes. And
the brother Imam broke it down.
Yeah.
He broke it down and he made it so plain that a fool could understand it. All right.
Yes, keep it
because
simple.
it's very simple and straightforward. And one of the things that you implied with that, in order to get to this new level, and I think you once said it before, or someone said it, and that is, we have to die in this world. Give it up.
Yes. Yeah.
To take on a new spiritual leap. And that's what we're talking about. You see? And look at the sacrifice, and to give it up, we have to sacrifice all the things that we thought we needed, that we thought we wanted, that we thought we loved. All this other stuff is like a blue sky, but if you got out that plane trying to find that blue, well, you just drop to the ground or to the ocean, because there's no blue sky, is there? There's no blue water. It's just an illusion. All right? So therefore, you give up this illusion to get onto a new spiritual plane. Brother Imam, you broke it down and you put it out there.
Thank you, Imam Saab.
Thank you, Dr. Sufi V. Beautifully said there. And I think you're opening up a lot of things, I think, from the exoteric to the esoteric, and the way that you're, in terms of how you're bringing things together collectively now, and in terms of we're opening discussion, right? We're saying, listen, religion is not meant to be hard, yeah? We ourselves are making things harder for ourselves by narrowing our understanding and narrowing our belief system. And why are we doing that? I think the question is the why. I think we should leave everyone with the why. You see? Why is that happening?
Yes.
Because that's a great injustice to yourself. Everybody deserves to know the truth. Every single person.
Well, this has been a really exciting podcast. We started off with Ancestral Energy, and we, did a whole full circle. And I'm sure we have so much more to discuss about on our 44-minute podcast today. But thank you all for tuning in. Thank you, Dr. V. Thank you, Imam Saab. Until next time, Assalamu alaikum.